Hello class, welcome to this lesson. I'm your lecturer, Dr. Susan Macharia from the School of Education, the Department of Educational Psychology and Technology, and the unit is Human Growth and Development. The code is BEP 1102. It's a very important unit for those students who are seeking to join the teaching profession. And today, I want us to be able to look at research methods that you can use to understand human growth and development. But before we go there, let's kindly just look very fast at what we covered last time. You remember that I gave an introduction to show you what we are supposed to cover in the unit. We were also able to describe to define some of the key terms that we used in the unit. Something like growth, development, maturation, and so on. We were also able to look at the principles of human development. We were also able to unpack the concept of human growth and development by looking at its nature. And we ended by looking at some of the factors that affect human growth and development. Remember, I also gave you an assignment to research on something, and I'm not going through that assignment today. You'll send it, we'll look at it together. So today, I want us to move now to the research methods you can use to generate knowledge about human growth and development. Now, any person who is trying to pursue the teaching profession has to have a rough idea about how you can learn about your students. And therefore, by the end of the lesson, you will be able to do the following. Number one, you'll be able to describe 3 research methods you can use to study human growth and development. You'll also be able to see something about what we call the scientific method. Don't worry even if you're not taking science. The research process is a scientific process, and that's why we are calling it a scientific method. So when you say scientific method, don't think about the lab if you're not a scientist. We are going to describe the steps that you need to follow when you are doing the scientific method to generate knowledge in human growth and development. So 3 things there. Now, when we talk of research methods, let's try now to immerse ourselves into the scientific method. Now, a research method in the study of human development includes all those techniques that are appropriate to research about children of different ages, as well as adults, with individuals and groups within the school environment. You want to know more about your learner. You want to know more about your parent, the one who gives you that learner. So how will you find out this information? We are going to apply what we are calling a research method. In all cases, the goal of research methods in human development, growth and development is the same. Basically, to use the tools of the scientific method to understand the process of how human development takes place. And therefore, in human growth and development, we use what we call scientific methods. In scientific methods, as I have indicated earlier, you don't have to go to the lab. You just use simple things, observation and experimentation. So you can observe a child fighting another one in school, or a child pushing another one every so often in the school, a bully. You can observe that. And therefore, you want to understand deeply what is it that is causing this kind of behavior among your learner. You can also observe a student performing poorly in your subject, posting low grades, not able to do assignments, making noise every other time. So you want to research and get to know what is the root cause. And that's why we are calling upon the use of scientific method that entails observation and experimentation. And when you talk about the scientific method, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about two components that make that scientific method. The first one, you must have a rough idea. What is it that you want to study? Of course, you cannot study a learner in general. You must have a specific thing that you want to research about in that learner. Is it the noise-making behavior? Is it the bullying? Is it the pushing with other children? Is it that you have found that your student, through observation, you have found that he's performing poorly? Sometimes you find that your student is not social. He doesn't like interacting with other people. So that is it. That is now the idea that you want to study. And therefore, the concept that you want to study. And therefore, this issue must be studied under conditions that are, can either be supported or refuted. Secondly, the research must be done in such a way that it can be observed, evaluated, and replicated by others. You don't want to be this kind of researcher or teacher, come researcher, who does a study that nobody will ever even acknowledge that they also found the same. You want something that can be replicated by other people. And therefore, for us, in the Department of Educational Psychology and Technology, we have to have a rough idea about what are the goals of this scientific method in the study of human growth and development. The first one, maybe before I go deeply into each of them, I want you to know that there are 4 goals. Number 1, describe. Number 2, explain. 3, predict. And number 4, improve. So when we describe something, class, we want to be able to give a detailed account of that aspect of human growth and development that you are studying. So describing entails giving a detailed account of that behavior that you are studying. Number 2, when we explain something, we want to be able to account for that aspect of development or observation that you made, to show cause and effect. That is what an explanation is all about. You can even talk of giving reasons or being able to come up with a reason of why that aspect of behavior or development that you are studying takes place. Thirdly, you want to be able to predict. And predicting simply means that you are able to see something about the future, to foretell about what will happen, what might happen if this trend or whatever you have observed continues to occur. And the last one is to improve. So when we say improvement, we want to say that once you have done all this description, explanation, prediction, then you develop an intervention that is going to help you be able to interact with that student more effectively. And that is where we are calling it an improvement or development of an intervention. The next thing that you need to know, class, you have to have a rough idea about the steps of the research that are involved in the research process. Remember, I told you that you don't have to be a scientist or a science-oriented teacher. But these steps of the scientific process are simple, that anybody from any area of specialization can follow. So long as at least you're in the teaching, you're desiring to join the teaching profession. The first one is to identify an area of interest by making an observation around your class or the school. And here we have said that area of interest might be something like a student bullies other students every so often. You might find a student is withdrawn, antisocial. He doesn't like interacting with other students. You might observe a change in academic or learning achievement. You might see that in your class there's always a particular student who likes sleeping when you're in class, and you want to find out what is it that is causing all these issues. The next thing, developing a research question. A research question will now help you to focus on what you want to study about that particular behavior that you have identified in your learner that has to do with development. Thirdly, you also need to go out there and generate the data that you require to be able to respond, to fill in the answers of this research question and be able to understand the observation that you are making more deeply. And once we talk about data collection, it's basically just going out there, bring a bit of information that will help you respond. And when you do hypothesis testing, I know hypothesis might be a new word to you, but let me just say what hypothesis is. A hypothesis is basically a tentative explanation of something that you are researching about. Maybe you can say a student is performing poorly in examination because he doesn't have food. That's a hypothesis. But now when you go out there and collect the data, you'll be able to find out, is it the food that is causing the student to perform poorly in the examination or other factors, which the data will bring and support this other hypothesis. From there, you need to examine the results and draw conclusions. You have collected your data. Yes, you've brought. So find out, how does this data now help you to respond to the research question vis-a-vis your area of interest? So what do you conclude? Have you been able to generate the data that will help you to respond to what you wanted? And then the next thing, generating a small report that will help you now to say, what have you found? Put everything together, and that's what we are calling the findings. Now, the next thing that we agreed that you will be able to do by the end of this lecture is to talk about the at least three methods you can use to do to generate data about human growth and development. And class, the first one is what we are calling cross-sectional method. Let me appreciate that perhaps you are coming for, you are meeting this word for the first time, cross-sectional, but it's a simple word or a simple concept. And here, the key word is that we compare groups that differ in a characteristic of your interest or other. So you compare. For example, many children at different ages are studied in groups according to their age, and the results of the same measures are compared for these groups. Say, for example, you wanted to learn something about language acquisition or language development, how the children acquire language. You cannot go out there and study each and every child that you're going to meet around the school environment or the community. So here, you can pick children who are between maybe birth to 3 months, then 4 months to 8 months, continuing up to maybe 15 months in batches of 3 months. Then you study the way the children are interacting with the environment and how the changes in language are taking place. Then from there you compare. And that's why we are saying the key word here, when you talk of cross-sectional, the key word is comparison. For example, another example that I had here, you may want to, an approximate age at which an infant can be expected to roll over, creep, crawl, pull himself up to a standing position, and walk unaided can be determined by observing the behavior of groups of children from birth to around 15 months. So instead of taking one child and following this child from the age of, from birth up to 15 months, divide, you're interested now in how the children is, is able to the mobility part of the child. How does he change over time? How does he develop? So here you divide, you study different children who are maybe between birth, 3 months, then from 4 to 6 months, from 7 months to 9 in batches of 3, and see the changes. Then you put that information together. And the rest of the example is still there. Let me not go back there. And this one, for any method that you choose, class, remember it's also important to have what are its advantages, what are its disadvantages. Next, so in terms of the merits of this method, we see that it can generate data very fast. Because remember, you're dealing with different groups of children or individuals, different ages. So therefore, you can study 3 months old, 6 months old, 9 months old, 12 months, and 15 months old children within a short span of time. And that's why we are saying there, it is quick, because you can be able to generate that data very fast. And it is not that expensive, because basically you can get that data so fast. Then again, it is able to give you a good overview of the phenomenon that you want to investigate. So if you are dealing with mobility, how does the child change in terms of movement around from the time he is born up to the time he is 15, you can be able to understand that aspect of mobility within a short time. Then, thirdly, it also gives a large number, it is able to study a large number of individuals within a short duration of time. And what more would a teacher want? You don't want to undertake a study that will take long to do. You want a study that will give you genuine information, credible information that can be believed, and it holds water and anything else that it is supposed to hold, and then from there you can share within no time. However, it does have a few demerits. One, it does not tell you what was going on before the behavior of interest. So this word here, you have the word antecedents. What is an antecedent? Antecedent is something that was there before. So when you're using the cross-sectional, it is not going to tell you what was happening before you collected that data in terms of the particular behavior of interest. Then secondly, it does not explain the stability of the behavior of interest. There are so many things that change. And therefore, as much as you can see the changes taking place, it does not tell you what is able to cause what, and what is stable and what is not. And then number 3, individuals who come from different age groups may differ in terms of the chronological age, but also the environment within where they were raised. So as we indicated earlier, some of the things that affect human growth and development is the environment or the culture within where this individual is born and raised. And therefore, some of these things that we observe in the cross-sectional method are not able to take care of that, and also what we call the generational effects. The other method that I would want you to learn is what we call the longitudinal method. Now, as the word suggests, longitudinal, we start with the first 4 letters. Long means something that is taking a long duration. Meaning, here, you study, here the researcher selects one group and observes a behavior of interest in terms of human growth and development for a long time. And this long time is not 2 days, 1 week. It is anything to do with 5 years, 10 upwards. So if, for example, you're interested in to see how language develops, or the changes taking place in terms of language development in children who are born, for example, in the month of April or in the month of December, you start with those children. They could be 20, and you study them maybe for 10 years. That's what we are calling the longitudinal method, noting what they are able to do, how they add their vocabulary and grammar and all that. Now let's go to the merits of this one. As much as it takes a long time, the first thing is that it is a very strong method in human growth and development because it makes it possible for you to be able to identify and account for all the trends in terms of human development. So anything that you observe or from that one group, you remember you stay with that one group for a long period of time, studying them. And therefore you'll be able to see that phenomenon of interest unfold. And the trends that you want to see in development will emerge. Secondly, it offers unique and authentic data. Why? Because longitudinal studies go directly to the source of information for the data, and therefore what is collected is authentic and unique. Remember, these are not things to read from books. You study that departmental phenomenon as it occurs for a long time. And that is why we say the data that you generate is coming from it's coming from the source of the data, and therefore it is authentic and unique. 3, it makes the data much easier to collect when compared with other study methods. In spite of it taking a long time to study the changes in terms of human growth and development, you can be able now to collect the data easily because you are dealing with one group for a long time. You follow them all the way instead of having to move here and there and everywhere. One group, you stay with it for long, and you can be able to get the data without a problem. So we go now to the demerits of the same. 1, we said that it is expensive in terms of time. So sometimes you might find 10 years, you also want to do something different, but you have not finished your study, and that's why we say that it is expensive. Secondly, we talk of attrition. Attrition here simply means that some of the people that you are studying, that you start with in the original plan of your longitudinal study, may drop out of the study. They may change in terms of the area of residence. So if you started with 30 children, maybe you find within no time the child has moved to a different county or a different country. You find some of them may even, sorry to say this, they may die. But when it comes to attrition, simply means that they drop out of the study. And once they drop out of the study, it affects the credibility of your findings. Now, the other method is what we call cross-cultural methods. Now, under cross-cultural, we compare different groups from different cultures. And to be able to do this, we gather data on human development in terms of the cross-cultural method, which is a special kind of a cross-sectional study. For example, if the reading ability of 6-year-old children are supposed to be compared, you can, for example, classify the groups from the low, the medium, and high-income families. Because here we see in low families, we have our culture. In the middle class, we have our culture. In the high-income families, each and every person has their own way of doing things and affects their development in terms of the reading skill. And therefore, we collect children from these 3 different groups around the same age, and we compare their reading abilities. Whatever you get is what we are calling a cross-cultural study. And here we can see that individuals differ culturally from the extent to which their customs, their roles, and other behaviors that are passed on from generation to generation are actually being different. Now, the other thing that I think we need to be able to do is the steps, is our conclusion. Now, in terms of the conclusion, we have been able to see some of the steps in the scientific method. And we have also been able to see at least 3 methods that we can use to generate research, research in human growth and development, and also its merits and demerits. And you'll agree with me that because scientific research is, human growth and development has to be looked at from a scientific method, we have emphasized that we have to use the observation and experimentation. But for the experimentation, I think I'll look at it during the next lesson. And remember that for each, we have the advantages and disadvantages. Now, there's no lesson that doesn't end with an assignment, as usual. So let's say, the first thing, for any research to take place, there are what we call research ethics. You don't just rush to a learner and start studying. You're supposed to be guided by what we call research ethics. So can you read and make notes on ethical concerns in the research or scientific research? And here, as you do the notes, make sure that you are able to write something about 7 ethical concerns. So not 2, not 3, but 7 ethical concerns. The next thing that I want you to do for your assignment is that sometimes you have ever heard somebody in the community talking about clinical, or somebody are going for clinic. So now can we see, go and read something and make notes about the clinical methods of research in human growth and development, and more so, how you can use this clinical method in the school. So that now brings us to the end of our lecture for today. I have been your lecturer, Dr. Susan Macharia. Thank you so much for being there. Stay safe until we meet next time.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.